Please welcome the incredible Lauren Tickner.
Yes, Renee, thanks for having me. We just recorded a great interview about your life and your world, and so I'm grateful to be here on your show. So it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, this is a double whammy. It's not too often that I do this but you were smart. You're like, let's just schedule 2 hours, of which we've
Batch.
probably moved 2 times already. Here we are. And yeah, we had a really awesome conversation over on your podcast, and I will link that in the show notes too. But now this is all about you. So how are you doing?
Great. Yeah, I'm good. I feel like we spoke about so many things and we spent pretty much half our time just chatting. So,
Yeah, I know. I
yay,
know.
productivity, right?
So you have a really interesting like travel living stuff. So you're now located in Austin, but where were you before that?
Okay, well, I'm not working in Austin, right? Definitely
Yeah.
not, especially if the IRS is listening. I am definitely just traveling right now. And so I live in Dubai, actually. So
Yeah.
it's a great place. There's a lot of cool entrepreneurs there, and obviously 0% tax is something which is very cool. So that's where I'm at, yeah. But on the travel right now,
Wow. My mind just blew 1 second. 0%
0%.
tax.
Yeah, 0% on personal income, capital gains. They are slowly introducing corporate tax, but right now, as of right now at least, it's just VAT if you're transacting with other businesses within the UAE. So Dubai is a part of the UAE, United Arab Emirates. And so to be fair, we actually noticed this really weird trend, which was that we actually had three client refunds that we had to do within like a 4 month period. That was it. And they were all Dubai based companies. So we pretty much decided with our media buyers as we're scaling some ads, we're actually just not even going to bother targeting there because that
Mm.
was just a weird trend. Maybe it was just a fluke, but yeah, we don't really work
So,
with businesses out of there. So yeah, that's kind of
so why Dubai?
literally like I went on vacation. Okay, I was always living in service apartments. So when we were just doing the interview, you were letting me know about like Betty, who sounds like a badass. Like I need a
She is.
Betty in my life. But my solution, like when I was single and when I was living by myself, was just living in serviced apartments. So you would more just pay like a month to. It's like a hotel apartment, and so it'd be like 1 or 2 bedrooms, nice place, furnished, has everything. They deliver things right to your door, and like they have cleaning come in. They give you toilet paper, all this stuff, right? So for me, that was great because it was so efficient, and I never had to think about anything. If something
Yeah.
broke, I would just phone them. They fix it, right? And so during the lockdown, I was in central London and I was living in this amazing place. And then they let me know, oh, hey, Lauren, like, just to let you know, in 3 weeks, we're going to have to increase the price back to the nightly price. Okay, the nightly price was like, it was like £1,200 or something. It was like ridiculous. But I was getting it for super cheap, like just a few grand a month because it was lockdown. It was a holiday apartment. And so they said, well, we're going to go back to this pricing, but like just to let you know, we have some great places in the UAE. And I was like, in the UAE, what? And so they were like, yeah, you should check out Dubai. I mean, I see you travel and stuff. You probably really like it. So I texted my friend because I remember that her dad was like an engineer in oiling over in the Middle East. I was like, have you ever been to Dubai? She was like, yeah, Dubai is great. It's really, really fun. And it's just super cool and super nice and really clean and really safe. Because I was thinking in my head, like, how the hell am I going to tell my dad that I'm going to go and visit the Middle East, right? Because in the UK, it has quite a bad image. So anyway, we ended up going there, and I was sat next to someone, and I was actually texting my accountant because some accounts needed to be filed. And I was frustrated and stressed because, if you're like me, and probably a lot of people listening to this, just paperwork is just like torture, okay? And so I was just really frustrated. And he said, well, there's no tax here, right? And I turned to him and I was like, are you kidding me? There's no tax. He's like, yeah, just move your business here. It's really, really simple. You can set it up in a free zone and then you have no tax. And I was like, that sounds too good to be true. This has to be a scam. Anyway, I looked into it and I realized that it's more about actually like, where are you not a tax resident? more than anything else. Because if I was still living in the UK and I stayed there and I had a business in Dubai, it's not really gonna do much for me, because any money that I would want to take out and pay myself, I would still have to pay to the UK government. So I realized if I changed my tax residency where I'm at, and I was, I was single, right? Like I was in my early 20s at this time, and I just could pick up and move just like that. I had literally like one suitcase of stuff because I already gave all my stuff to charity before I went on that trip, because my dad, anyway, it's a long story, but that's pretty much how I ended up in Dubai.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a cool place. There's a lot of great entrepreneurs, and that was where I met my boyfriend a couple years ago. And since then, we've been based out of there, but traveling a bit, and it's fantastic.
That's fun. Wow. And so
It's fun,
scary
yeah.
too. Is it a
It
very
was not.
different lifestyle?
To be honest, I would say the closest thing that I've experienced would be Miami. It's like a
Okay.
mixture of Miami and New York, I would say. So parts of it that I don't like in Dubai is like kind of the like super flashy. Is That's just not really my vibe. I'm like super minimalistic, and I don't like stuff. So that's one thing that I dislike about it. But culturally, the shock isn't as much as you would think, because the majority of people that live there are like expats from Australia, UK, Europe, and a few Canadians, not many though, mainly from like Asia as well. So yeah,
Okay.
it's very cool. I mean, it's definitely worth a visit, but a lot of people
Yeah.
that visit, they don't leave. So
Well, I feel like that'll be a 2024 thing to throw on the map. That's
hmm
cool.
yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into what it is that you do. So tell us about Impact School.
Yeah, so our main focus is working with founders who want to have like a high profit, way more simple business that's structured. Because what we see a lot is people starting something because they're passionate about it, right? That I like, I don't know what your background was, but like at least for me, when I first started, I was actually doing online fitness coaching years ago, back before it was kind of cool to have like a fitness Instagram. I was totally mocked for that, and that was how I began, and it slowly evolved from there. And like people then asking me, hey, like how did you build the fitness coaching business? And then I helped them, and then I was like, 2 years later, okay, I only finally clocked on, oh, I can have that as a business. And then slowly but surely, like helping different niches and different industries. But because it like evolves, what ends up happening is people get so burnt out, they get so exhausted, they are doing so many different things all by themselves or with a team who are most of the time totally incompetent, because they haven't been trained on how to be a leader, right? Because when we start a business, we never sign up for all of these different things. So like they're spinning all these different wheels and these different plates, and you just end up getting so burnt out. And what I see so often, and this even caused me personally, I didn't have my period for 8 years because I was just constantly
Wow.
operating from like pure hustle, like pure just like forcing myself through so many different things. And I thought that something was like wrong with my body. But I was just like in this super masculine energy, just like driving things forward, like grinding all the time. And yeah, it only took me like meeting my now boyfriend to realize like, oh my God, like I actually really want to have children. And so then finally I did something about the way that I was operating. And so my point, like my real passion and my real mission is supporting entrepreneurs and founders in building a business like that they actually doing what they got into business to do, right?
Yeah.
Because then they can stay in their zone of genius. And I think that's where people really like. I have this one client, right? Actually, because we're speaking about like fertility, she's a fertility doctor, and like she was even going to quit her business because she was just so sick and tired of doing like sales and marketing and stuff, because she wasn't able to work with the right clients because she was always trying to close people. And so it's like we help people find the people that can support their business so they can get back in their zone of genius and really scale a high profit business that's simple to run, that allows them to do what they got into business to do. So that's what Impact School is all about. And yeah, it took me making all the mistakes to actually realize that that was more important to me than having like this giant company, like this giant program, like I think is kind of marketed, honestly. So yeah.
And how long have you been doing this for?
Well, I started as an online fitness coach 9 years ago. And so it was like a slow evolution over time. Yeah, what I do now, it's been about 4 years. properly, right? Let's be real, like we kind of can start some things and have like an online course or something, but like actually properly with structure, like with a powerful team, yeah, between 3 and 4 years, I would say. Yeah.
Nice. And it's growing?
Yes, yes. I prefer, what's that book? It's called like Run Like Clockwork. They talk about the difference about
Yes.
scaling and growing, right? So
Yes.
I'm always trying to make the distinction between scaling and growing because what does he say? Like growing is doing more of the same thing, just hustling harder at it, whereas scaling is more like, at least this is what I took. Scaling is more about like increasing the capacity so that there's more room to like grow into that. That's kind of how I think about it because my main focus at the moment is like, how can I replace myself in the different areas and also like transmit the philosophies that are like my true beliefs and the things that have worked for me throughout the company to my team, and so on and so forth. And just running like a well-oiled machine because I do believe that as people with a platform, with an audience, like we need to lead by example. And I think that like for the longest time, I was not the best example. It made people money for sure, right? But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, like in the grand scheme of things, like that's the easy part. And the hard part is doing it while also having the lifestyle and maintaining like the client results, the client experience, like the team not being burnt out. Like I've really shifted over the last couple of years, like that to be my primary focus. So it's stepping into a new arena, which is it's pretty fun and like I feel like I'm learning a lot, honestly. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Let's talk about what you just said about replacing yourself. So, in my program, so I have like your typical retainer model, and then I also have this VIP day, which maybe the name will change one day, but for now, it is what it is. And in launching this program, the first thing that I did, instead outside of outlining what the program is going to look like, who it's good for, is taking the steps to replace myself. So, and I was doing an intensive in Florida a couple weeks ago, and I was teaching this to the girls. They're like, "Wait, you're launching a program, and your first task is to learn how you're not going to be involved?" I'm like, "Yeah, it sounds kind of crazy, but it's also kind of cool, and it's so doable." And when I explained it to them, they're like, if you're really good at starting and like growing the business, like for the first few years or even few months, and things start to make sense, you're becoming profitable, you can't be stuck in the weeds. You can't be
Yes.
doing the stuff, working in the mailroom. You got to extract yourself. So, and having that integrated into your plan when you're launching is brilliant. So, how do you
Yeah.
do it?
No, I'm so with you. So we actually, with all of our clients, like there's these four phases that we go through in everything, right? So there's like, we call it 7 areas of impact. And then in each of those areas, you validate. So you validate a concept. So for example, for you, right, your PR methods, like you did that for so long, like you validated it, you know that it works. And then you stabilize it, okay? So it's not like you just get some one fluky result one time and it just magically worked. It's like, even for the most difficult client, how can I ensure that this is gonna work? And then from there, we believe replace yourself. That's the next part. And then you can scale. And so it's every single thing. Validate, stabilize, replace yourself, scale. Validate, stabilize, replace yourself, scale. And so for many of our clients coming in, it's like, oh my gosh, I need an appointment setter right now. It's going to solve all my problems. I'm going to have sales calls. I'm going to have leads. It's like so much chaos because they are struggling so hard to get leads and they can only think, how can I replace myself in sales right now? Because they can't for the life of them close deals or get enough leads. And it's like, okay, let's slow down a bit. Like, let's actually validate this. Like, let's make sure this actually is gonna work. Because, for example, a salesperson, if we're gonna be replacing you in sales, if you're not making enough revenue per month to allow a salesperson to make between like 7 to 10K at the very least, that's what a good salesperson is gonna wanna make, they're not gonna stay in your business. They're gonna go elsewhere. So to your point, I'm just always thinking through that lens. Like, is this actually validated? Like, is this ready for me to replace myself in? Because if not, I'm getting on those calls with clients. Like, I'm going in there and I'm clicking the buttons to figure out like what's going on in some things. In others, I need to know from my team, I need evidence, okay? So for example, like this ads, okay? These Facebook ads. I'm like, I have no goddamn clue how the hell this works. I've tried courses, I've tried to understand it. I don't have a clue. So I need you to show me the data, the numbers, like, and present to me like I'm a 5-year-old why this is working and how you could teach it to me like I'm a kid, because then I know that our clients will understand it. So that's really what I do. It's like, in the beginning, I'm personally validating the things, stabilizing them, then replacing myself. And then now my aim is to try and find the people who can do that and explain it to me so that I know with certainty this is something that, okay, I can just leave you to, just report back to me monthly, like what's going on. So that's kind of where I'm at now. But like in those beginning stages, replacing myself was really about having the confidence that the system works. Because then if I knew that the system was working, I could trust the person. Because I think that one of the hardest things is to shut your eyes and go to bed at night knowing, okay, my business is fine, it's not going to all burn down if I'm not personally doing everything. And I think when you have the belief in the system, then you have that trust in the person, as long as you've actually done some interviews to vet them out, because the amount of times I see people just hiring their friend.
I know. Don't ever hire friends. So it's validate, stabilize, replace yourself, and then what?
Scale. Yeah.
Scale.
So scale from there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The recruiting thing is something. So we always use these things called test projects, where you have 3 candidates go through the test projects. These are paid for projects. Of most of the time, it's stuff you're going to use in your business anyway. Yes. That's relevant to the role. And then you can make a decision based on the execution of those test projects, because there's nothing like for the person that's applying to get a sense of what the work's going to be like, to find out they don't like it. And this is great. It's a great way for them to assess whether or not it's something they want to do. And then for you, because you're giving them just enough information to know what they need to do in a test project, but not too much, because you want them to figure it out too. Yeah. And I just did this in hiring a VA, and it's so fascinating. The people that interview really, really well cannot pull off a test project.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's sales. This is literally sales. It's like sales versus client fulfillment, really. When it's like the problem of the industry as a whole, which is what I'm seeing a lot. It's like you see it in interviews, you see it in programs that you join. Like it's a huge problem. And so I just wonder, like, what I personally prefer to honestly be more, what's the word? Like, modest. I would rather like wait under promise, because then like if a client comes in, because an employee is kind of like, a client, right? It's like the same thing. So I'd rather just like be more promising less and then delivering more, because I think then it sets you up to actually get more referrals, because that person's like surprised about the results that you're able to get them. And yeah, in interviewing, it's the same thing. So like with regards to your point, one thing that I can't remember for the life of me who I learned this from. It might have been one of Patrick Lencioni's books, which are really, really good. It's like in the very beginning, when they first come in to start working with you, letting them know, like, this first month is going to be really, really overwhelming. Like, this is going to be crazy. We have so much on, and just making it sound like really hell. Because let's be honest, like, when you have a new job, it is hard. It's really challenging. So then they don't place judgment on themselves, right? Because a new team member, when they first come in, like, if they're not doing something 100% perfect and they're feeling judged, like, they're also going to start to not like the feeling at the company. So we always do that too. And that's actually been super valuable in like the long-term mindset of our team members when they're coming in, because they know, like, this is going to be challenging here, but if they rise to the occasion, then then it's someone that you want to have on your team. So yeah, I
love that. I'm going to use that.
It's helpful. Yeah. Then they don't burn out. It's like the worst thing. Oh my God, when you hire somebody, this used to happen to me all the time. I would hire someone and I would have the most amazing system ever, and then I would just bring them in and then I would just leave them to it. Whereas now what I've realized is, okay, you have to slowly ease someone in. But you tell them this is like going to be crazy chaos, but you're slowly easing them in. And then it's not crazy chaos, right? And then even if it is a bit chaotic for them, the way they perceive it, it wasn't as bad as they thought it was going to be. Yeah. So it's very, very helpful.
And then they feel more confident too, because they're doing a good job. Yeah, yes. They're winning. Set people up to succeed. That's the most important thing as a leader. And we fail to recognize that.
Yeah. It's
So
crazy,
let's talk
yeah.
about this thing of overthinking, because we were talking about this before we press record. And why, like, overthinking, it's funny because we were thinking about the questions I needed to ask you for this conversation, and you said you're overthinking this. Why is overthinking stopping people from taking action?
So I see very often people working really hard on a lot of things. Like they're really putting a lot of energy and attention and focus on it. But 90% of the things that most people are spending time on is causing them to move sideways versus moving forward. And I truly believe that perfectionism is just procrastination packaged up all fancy. So we'll do things like edit our reel on Instagram for a really, really long time to make it look nice, or make a beautiful design on Canva so that we can have a great thumbnail or a graphic that we're going to send to one individual client. But directionally, that's not really getting us anywhere. And so I think that we do these things because they feel good, and it's a way for us to put our heart and soul into something, which is like a creative outlet. But at the same time, like, I truly believe that this ends up making us feel like we're doing something that's causing results, but ultimately it's not really actually producing, let's say in your business, revenue, right? Because at the end of the day, the business is there to produce revenue as a byproduct of the service or the thing that you sell. And so I think that, like, when it comes down to this, it's just a way to buffer. And unfortunately, a lot of people are quite afraid of sales and marketing. But at the end of the day, like, until your revenue is at a stable level where it's not going up and down month on month, pretty much all you need to be doing is getting leads, selling to them, and then delivering. 3 things. So, like, what's with the, like, fancy... I mean, I was just telling you, you were asking me, what's my website? I'm like, we're redoing it right now, but, like, I've been doing online stuff for, like, really properly 8 years now, and I don't even have a website.
Yeah.
To be honest.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Well, in the book that I'm reading, Ready, Fire, Aim, he talks about how in your first few years of business, up until like $1 million, or maybe it's a $5 million, I don't know what the threshold is you only need to be focusing on sales. Yeah. People think, oh, I got to have the perfect business cards, the perfect website, an updated social media account. My program needs to be dialed in so perfectly, and then I can sell it. It's like, ooh, well, what happens if you sold it first? Oh, well then what are they buying? Something that doesn't exist? Then you go and build it. Mm-hmm. The concept is like, somewhere in business school or some business thought was like, build it, make it beautiful, they will come.
Yep.
But, it really comes back down to the selling. And if that's all you did for the first couple of years of your business, you'd be crushing it.
Well, I was going to say, like, you also don't know if it's going to work. That's why we always do that validate, okay? Let's validate, let's stabilize with actual clients, not just things that you think is validated. It's like, it's not a sale until the money's in the bank, right? Yep. It's not something that people actually want. It's not a good product. It's not a good offering until people pay you money, and they don't just tell you that they're going to pay you money. Like, the money is inside of your bank account, and they're not asking for a refund, okay? Until that moment, then it's not validated. And until, for example, you get someone on your team fulfilling that for you and delivering that to someone, you have not replaced yourself. And until the client's given you a testimonial with your team member's name in it instead of yours, okay, I personally don't believe you fully replaced yourself there. And so it's so true what you say regarding that book, because it's like, okay, how can you actually focus? And I know actually Dan talks about this in his book too. We have all of our clients do a time audit as well when they first come in, and actually mark down the things that are revenue generating. Is this generating you revenue, right? Because if it's not generating you revenue, and you have revenue that's up and down and up and down, as the founder, when we have a smaller business, right? Like, and when I say smaller business, I'm pretty sure a small business is actually something that's under like 50 million a year. So,
I know.
but like, as a founder of like a very small founder-led company, where we're putting our energy and our attention is the directional effort of what the whole company is going to be focused on. I truly believe that when we have, like, when we're focused on revenue generating activities, we're also showing, like, this is what we do as a company. Like, this is our culture here. And your team picks up on that too, if you have a team. And so, I know the original question was like overthinking, right? It's like, well, what if they say no to me? Okay, well, that's part of business. It's literally part of business. So one of my first actual jobs, I was working as an estate agent, like a realtor, as they say in America. I was like knocking on doors, going to ask, like, hey, do you want to put your house up for sale? Because there was this massive like lack of the actual sales side in the market. So it was kind of the other way around, right? But it's so crazy. Like, people are so mean when you're actually going and knocking on their door, because that's their home. Like, that's a very personal place. And so I think for me, like, one of the things that on the frames, I just like to take everything as a challenge. And so I'm always thinking to myself, like, how can I do something that's a little bit ballsy that makes me feel a little afraid? So, for example, we were talking about like DM sales conversations, right? I'd say this is one of the things that Impact School is quite known for. And so every time that I find myself scrolling social media, I have a rule for myself that I have to go and message 5 people, like, prospects.
That's so good.
It's a rule. And now every time I open my bloody Instagram and I'm like, oh my gosh, no, I have to go and message 5 people. And I don't want to do it. It's the last thing that I want to do. But it's a way that I've been able to enforce like a rule in my life that is like a capture safety net, so that if I do an activity that is taking me away from my goals, then I'm going to do something that's going to take me towards my goals. And people wouldn't think that I would still do this right now, even with like, I have like 8 people on my sales team. But it's something that I do for myself, you know? So what are those things that you can do in your own life to prevent you from taking actions that are just buffering and ultimately just emotional? Because why am I doing that? Probably because I'm avoiding a task that I really need to do, sending an email that's going to be really challenging, getting on a call with a team member that needs to happen, but I'm like afraid to send something to them and give them some deadline because I'm worried that they're not going to get it done in time, right? That's always it. I know this about myself because I've analyzed my actions. So it's a helpful rule.
I love that when you said that if you're going to do something that takes you away from your business, you got to do something that puts it back. Yes. And social media is terrible. Unfortunately for me, is I have to use it for my clients to scan for media opportunities. And let me tell you, I go down the rabbit hole far too often in trying to seek information from journalists and where they're at in the world. And yeah, it's a dangerous, very slippery slope. But where like overthinking comes into our lives too in everything. And what is it? We have 36,000 thoughts a day or something? I don't even know what the statistics. It's just crazy, right? And a lot of these things we do overthink. So actually in my planner, so this beautiful planner, the morning practice planner, the beginning of it, there's an exercise where I teach you how to make better decisions. There's 3 parts of our body in which we make decisions. The head, which is the logic, the heart, which is the emotions, and the gut, which is like the intuition. Ties it all together. So when you have, ask a question about, can I afford hiring this person? It's a head decision because you're like, do my finances match up to being able to afford this person? Or it's, do I lay this team off or 5 people on my team off because, our sales projections aren't too promising? That's obviously a head decision, but also a heart decision. Is this an emotional thing? Am I connected to these people because I like them, but I know I need to let them go? And then there's this intuition. So when you have to face a decision because you're overthinking something, is you just sit there and you just ask the question and like see where it goes in your body. Because the head's going to come up with all the reasons why you should or shouldn't do it. And your heart's going to have the same thing, but your intuition kind of ties it all together. And you'll know, like I wrote out a list of things. In the middle of the night, I woke up one night like a month ago, and I had 6 areas of which I could focus my attention to help scale my business. And it's like I could hire somebody to support me on PR, or I could hire a PR coach, or I could hire a social media person. I could do this, like all these things of which, yes, I'm sure that if I did invest in all 6, my business would grow, but there was just, the money wasn't there for it. And so I sat with it and I'm looking at this and I'm like, I know what the right decision is. And it's the decision that's going to take more of my time at first to train a new person, but it's the thing in the long term, it's going to pay off in dividends. And I overthink it. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just invest, the $2,000 a month and get a social media person and they can do that work and we'll get the leads that way. But I just knew in my gut, it just wasn't the right decision. So the overthinking is stopped when you make that list and you ask those 3 parts how to get through it. Do you have some sort of technique like that?
The way that I always think about it, and I love that, by the way, I love the feeling into which part of your body is it coming from. I'm going to 100% implement that. That's so cool. But, and I have I know exactly what you mean with that intuitive feeling. Like you just know when you actually take time to really sit with what are all the options. But to your point, like I just know that if I decide now and commit to a strategy, it's better than not having a strategy at all or jumping from this to this to this. Like most of the time, any strategy is better and you just stick to it because it's about the focus and the direction. Because I think the reason why I see, at least with our clients a lot, the problem comes from jumping from this thing to that thing to this thing to that thing, and then there's never anything going in one way. And I do think as well, like kind of as humans, one thing that we do is we always find the evidence for the thing that we wanted to be the thing that actually ends up, oh,
Totally.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I knew I should have done that. And so that's why if you just go with your intuition in the beginning, even if it doesn't make sense at first, at least then you're not going to have to justify your wrong actions, as you may call it, in the future if it doesn't work. So I have a great example. I can't really explain all the details, but I spent tens of thousands on this thing and basically ends up this guy's like a total scammer. Okay, so my intuition told me that this was not going to work out because when we were signing the deal, and I told you before we started filming, I used to have really bad panic attacks. Okay, and I don't really ever feel anxious these days. But as I was sitting there having dinner, I was feeling really anxious. I was having this like super anxious feeling in my gut. And then suddenly, like, he actually fell over on the floor and like that, they had to like get him outside with cold water. It was really weird. And it was like this sign from the universe, like telling me, do not do this right now. I went ahead with it and it turns out it was just a total disaster. And then I was literally telling myself, Lauren, you should have listened to your gut. Like you should have listened to your intuition. And then I was putting a lot of judgment on myself for not doing that, right? And so it's just interesting what you say, because I do think we always have this intuitive nature and this intuitive feeling. And so if I'd have just quit it right there, then I wouldn't have had all these consequences. But because I was going so much with my head, that was when I was actually, it was all backfiring on me. And so I was then in my head for a few days, like going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I went with the thing because in my head I'd already justified it. And so my strategy now, if we want to call it a strategy, is like I just make the decision that feels right based upon all the knowledge I have, my experience, and also my intuition. But I do think a lot of it comes from the maybe this is a bit woo-woo, but like the energy of someone. I mean, how do you even quantify that? You can't. But it's like, gosh, it is such a thing. It is such a thing. And I don't know, how do you do that? Like, I don't know how to even explain it to somebody.
The way that, when we recruited, when I had my agency, well, first of all, before I answer this, you gave me a good download. And I wanted to share this, is your intuition doesn't overthink.
That's true.
It's like, bang, that's it. And then you're like, then it goes to the brain. You're like, but your brain, your ego is like, but all these reasons why, yes or no. So just remember that your intuition doesn't overthink. So yeah, going back to when we were recruiting for the agency, one of the things I would always ask when it comes down to making a decision over a candidate was, is this somebody that I could be stuck at an airport bar on layover 3 hours? And like, we don't have to have matching personalities. You can be awkward, but energetically, am I okay being with this person for 3 hours in an airport while we're waiting for our flight to board? And if it's like a hard no, then it's a no for the team. Because especially as a small team under like 20, 30 employees, even more, 40, any new player added to that team, the energy changes the entire energy of the company. And so we have to be very mindful of that. And when we bring these people in, sure, they may be the best in the world at what they do, but if they don't actually fit within the company, they're not a good fit.
So true.
They'll destroy
Yeah,
you.
I've learned that the hard way for sure. I've learned that the hard way. And they're always the ones that will go off, like steal your clients and post mean things.
Sue
And
you.
yeah.
Happened to me. You're just like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, well, someone once told me, like, you're not a real entrepreneur till you've been sued.
Yeah,
And that made
so that
it,
happened. It's
yeah.
true. That happened to me, and I got sued for wrongful dismissal, of which she had no case, and I was so hurt and insulted because I'm like, I care for my people, even if we don't get along. I care for my people, and after I'd calmed down, my husband, Dan, said that to me. So I was like, I
Wow.
finally just like, I broke free. I'm a real entrepreneur now after all these years because I've been sued.
Congrats. You made it.
Woohoo!
Woo!
This was years ago too. Oh my gosh. But yeah, hopefully we don't all have to experience that one way or another. Something happens, right? We have to put out fires. But yeah, so just going back to that overthinking thing, like your intuition doesn't overthink, and using that understanding when you're hiring a VA or even just like a contractor or freelancer is they have to fit. Like I had a call with my Filipino VA this morning, realizing she always just bends over backwards to accommodate for my time zone. I'm like, you're the sweetest woman. Her English isn't the best, but she gets by. And she's the sweetest person. Even on Zoom, I can energetically feel that she's just a good person. And I'm like, where she has deficits in business, no problem. I can teach her. And she's excited about it.
Yes.
But yes, the energetic match is so important. So important.
So important. Yeah, no. And I was just going to say a final word because a business coach of mine actually said this to me, just going back to like the suing thing. So if you take like the average time period it takes to, let's say get your business to a certain level, like most people it will take this period of time. He was like, you've kind of condensed it into like this, shorter amount of time. So if someone gets sued like once in their lifetime, you should just expect it to happen like 4 times a year.
Yeah.
And as soon as he said that to me, I was just like, you're so right. You are so right. Like, I just need to stop putting like this pressure on myself, thinking that like this one thing is such a like catastrophic nightmare, giving me sleepless nights, and just realize like, okay, I'm just living life on like 4 times speed. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, slow down. Bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back to the breath.
Yes,
okay.
always.
It has been so cool hanging out with you. I love this conversation, but I have one last question for you.
Okay.
When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
Well, from what you said on the other podcast, I don't know.
No, don't bring that here.
Oh man, for me it really is all about just like embodying your truest values and going out there in the world doing what you truly believe it means to be in your feminine energy. Like when I hear that, like that's how I feel. It's like you don't have to fit in with everybody else. Just go out and do your thing, the thing that cools you, the thing that lights you up. And I truly believe that that's where, as women, we have the power to create the most magic. So that's what I think it means. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so if people can go online to find you, where can they go?
Just type in Lauren Tickner onto any social media platform. You'll find me there. And go listen to Impact School podcast, the episode with Renee. It was really, really good. All about your beautiful relationship and your family. Go check that out. And this was fun. Thank you so much.